and I roast coffee. I didn't always do that. I made very obvious steps to get into that business. I attended Penn State University for music, and once I graduated, I became a pastor. All in preparation to one day roast coffee here in Williamsport. But I learned something the second week I was a pastor. We were getting our student ministry together, and we were having a movie night at our church, getting everything ready, middle school students, high school students. And as we began to start, I saw a girl come in the back. Black hooded sweatshirt, hat pulled down, black nails. So my second week at the church, this girl came in, very obviously looking like she did not want to connect, and she didn't want anyone to speak to her. Being at the church felt like I probably should, especially as the pastor. But I didn't want to. Whether it was a mix of just being afraid, not knowing what to say, or not knowing just what I was getting myself into. I didn't want to go to that back row and sit down with her. So I finally made a decision. I tapped my fiance on the shoulder. I said, Bethany, you see that girl? She just came in the back. I think it'd be a great idea for you to sit down and meet her. And my wife did that. And over those next 4 years, we saw Katerina become a beautiful, smart, outgoing girl who changed in appearance, who changed in personality. And on her graduation, she came to my wife and she just said, thank you. Thank you for that day when you sat down with me. Because I didn't want to go. My parents begged me to go to church. And so I finally said, look, I'll go once. And when I go and no one speaks to me, then I don't ever want to go again. And that was the agreement she had with her parents. And my wife ruined that for her. With all that we've talked about and all that we've listened to today, I'd hope that we would all get that there's one all-encompassing foundational block for community, and that's in our relationships. It has to be. So what does that mean for us? My wife and I started our business a little over a year ago, downtown, because we wanted to have a place that, yes, you could go and hopefully get an exceptional product, but that you would also feel welcome and that you would be accepted. We wanted to have a place that would be a change agent in the community. I have friends that roast in Los Angeles, and they have a very simple mission statement. It's to make great coffee and be nice to you. And I wonder if within our industries, do we think about that second part? Do we think about what we're doing and then being nice to people? When you call a business, a company, and you go to the call center, think about how dramatically the trajectory of your entire day is dependent on the person that you talk to. Because for us, customer service is an absolute lost art. I called a call center over these past 2 weeks, and I talked to two very different people. The first one, the phone call literally ended with me being yelled at on the phone, to the point where I'm texting my wife saying, am I still a good person? The following week I called back and I got the most helpful person I felt like I'd ever talked to in my life. And thus I felt like I had one of the best days of my life. Do you know how much you can affect a person in what you do? I know here today we have, many of you are in the education sector. Like, if what you've heard today, if you think that only applies to you and your students, you've missed a big part. How many teachers are you around every day? How many neighbors do you have that you don't know who they are? I'm still guilty of this. I lived in my house for 3 years, and I still have people that live across the street I've not talked to. But they're part of my community. I have a friend named Guy. He's a church planter up in New York City. And a gentleman in his congregation this past week just said, if it happens in my community, it's my issue. We need to have that type of responsibility and care and love for our community. So what does that mean for me and my industry? You come in, and it seems to be about this. And while we put a lot of care and a lot of effort into what happens around this, around just a beverage, how we can connect with people, it's now becoming something even more. For us, most folks have no idea where coffee comes from. They know it as a brown bean. It just shows up. So for us, we said, okay, now what happens if we go further back in the supply chain? So for us, that's this. This is unroasted coffee, and it has to come from somewhere. It comes from a shrub. It's an agricultural product. It grows. It can be great. It can stale. It has flowering and a harvest time. So we said, so what can we do to be more involved in this supply chain? And what that's turned into over the summer months of this year has been a direct trade. We call it a relationship coffee with a farm in El Salvador. We have a coffee coming in about 4 days that we've been working with a farmer. His name is Roberto Dumont. He has a farm in El Salvador that's about 85.5 acres. He's a third-generation coffee farmer. He's a small farm. At the peak of their harvest, they employ about 55 people. Off harvest, they have about a dozen. And it was our desire as a small business trying to do something unique and worthwhile in our community to try to find other people around the world within our industry that we could partner with. The coffee industry, like many other things, can have some very great facets about it. It can have some very poor facets about it also. We didn't want to be just involved in something that for the cheapest price, we would then also just be perpetuating a cycle of poverty for someone else in the world. Because frankly, that doesn't make me a very good community member if I broaden my vision to the global and not just the local. So Roberto, we're getting his coffee in as a small farm, has a fantastic product. He's taken it's called a Cup of Excellence Award as one of the 20 best-ranked coffees out of the country of El Salvador. But beyond just a great product, we now get to know him. We get to call him. We can video chat with him. We get to see the farm where this coffee comes from. He gets to see us roast it and get feedback from people who actually get to drink his product, which is something very, very unique for many producers around the world. And this is something that we can also look forward to doing in the coming years, not just with him, but hopefully with other farms around the world. So again, what does this mean for us? Do you understand who your community is? Look within your industry. Look within where you live, the people you talk with. Figure out who your community is and who you want to impact and who you need to impact. Because if we really want to see something change in our community, we have to do something about it. If we don't care, don't do anything, and it will stay the same or get worse. But if we do care and love what we do, where we live, and the people that we're around, we have no other option but to actually act and pour into their lives. So in the spirit of what we've heard today, and I think all that TED does, please remember as we go out from here, look at what you do, take what you've heard, and remember that if we want to have change in our community, it's only ever going to come from change through our community. Thank you.